I'm Euro.
I'm Chris.
And this is Fork Bomb. Friday, January 22nd, 2021. And in this episode, we're talking about home labs.
And we are
How you doing, Chris?
super late. How you doing, Euro?
Good. We get that delay from, I believe you're in that Martian space station. So, like in the show The Expanse, we have a 700-second delay. I'm kidding, but sort of. I know we're really late with this episode. First we were late, and then we were super late. And so let me explain part of it. So the first reason why we're late is because I recently became a dad.
Congratulations!
Yay! Thanks. I got my own little minion, and it's a girl, and I'm really hoping that she'll be into all of this cool technology stuff. I'm definitely going to be, putting her around the retro hardware. And I got this little Super Nintendo thing. You can load different kinds of games on it. It's tiny, and it's got this little HDMI out. It's one of those Super Nintendo classics, which I, of course, modded, and now you can play anything on it. But yeah, so I put one of those in her room, even though she's an infant and can't even hold up a controller or her own bottle, she's got it. And therefore, that means I get to play it. So, but yeah, I'm excited to bring her into this world and of computing and things like that. So we'll see what she's into. Whatever she's into, I'll be into. So if she likes Jar Jar Binks, then I guess I'll be dressing up like Jar Jar Binks for her birthday. I don't know. Yeah,
I'm super happy for you, dude. And
thanks, man.
The other reason that we're late is because I messed up the recording. And by messed up, I mean I deleted my recording. Accidentally. Clearing out my downloads folder. Because like an idiot, I recorded into my downloads folder. Which will never, ever happen again.
But everybody's doing it. Yeah, we had the whole episode already done. And this was actually before my daughter was born. We wanted to make sure that we had enough time. So because in the beginning I'd be busy with my daughter and all that, but anyway, so that happened, and so now we're late. But whatever, it gives us another opportunity to have another episode, which is great, and we get to hang out again, which is what the whole point of this whole thing is.
And we're here now.
And we're here now. And so we'll get to talk about home labs again. So one of the things that I wanted to, I guess I have a little bit of an intro to home labs, is kind of an explanation of what a home lab is. And I don't know if you want to take a stab at it, Chris. If not, I will.
A home lab is running your own servers, or in today's parlance, running your own cloud. I hate that term so much. But normally, when you're on the web or doing anything on the internet, you're using somebody else's servers. Running a home lab means you are running your own servers and your own services to do your own things and own your own data.
Yeah, and since you and I are pretty hardcore, we own our own, metal. So we host our own metal. We have everything here. We're using up our own power and our own internet because that's the type of people we are.
So,
so where do we go from here?
Yeah. What you said.
Well, I wanted to ask you, actually, what was your first home lab?
And I wanted to ask you, why have a home lab?
Let's do that one first. So why have a home lab?
You could just,
for me,
get servers on Amazon or DigitalOcean, or, just give all your data to Dropbox or Google Drive, or, listen to all your music on Spotify. So, I mean, why would you even bother hosting your own stuff when it's so easy just to let someone else do it for you?
And probably cheaper, too. Well, in my opinion, you don't really get the same experience. I mean, here you get to build your own from scratch. And that means getting all the hardware pieces, which is probably my favorite part. And putting it all together, learning how it all works. That to me is it's just one of those things that it's definitely worth it. You at least want to try it once before you go out and and just kind of use one of these services that are already doing it for you, the experience is invaluable. And if you're into computing and things like that, chances are you're really going to enjoy building your own home lab. It's just one of those things where even if you do it once and you have it set up and, okay, maybe this thing isn't for me, the learning experience of getting there to the point where you finally say that is definitely worth it. So, and you know, for me, it's definitely the experience of doing it. Now I have it and I host it. I'm pretty happy with it. Another item too, and I think you briefly touched upon it, is you get to keep your own data. So it doesn't belong to anybody else. It's yours. You're responsible for it. It's your data. Nobody can go snooping through it unless you, of course, leave everything open, which nobody would ever do that. So, you know, it's just one of those things. You own your own data. You know, this is your own thing. You could bring it anywhere you want with you, and yeah. So that's another one of those reasons that people would build their own instead of entrusting their data with somebody else.
Yeah, pretty much the same reason here. So in my job, I've been a web developer. I've been an IT guy. Now, I've been a systems administrator. Now I'm a DevOps engineer. And at work, I'm not touching any of the hardware. I'm not setting any of the underlying Linux operating systems up anymore. That's all done for me. But because I still continue to do all this stuff at home, because I still continue to provision my own services and keep up with how all the underlying technology still works, it makes me a more capable technician, troubleshooter, all-around well-rounded employee at my job, because I look at it from all sides, not just what Amazon is presenting me on the outside for their host of services. I know what the operating systems are doing underneath. I know how the networking works. I know how to run my own Kubernetes stack. I know how to set up my own storage, my own VLANing, all that stuff. So keeping up with all the stuff at home is not only fun, but it makes me much better at my trade.
Yep, and I completely agree. I feel that this has made me, it just made me, I don't want to say a better worker, but it's definitely made me more knowledgeable at my job. So, and it's incredibly fun. It's you know, if you're passionate about this kind of stuff, it's definitely fun to do it and, or at least try. Okay, so then I'll go with my question. What was your first home lab?
See, I guess the first server that I was running for any length of time was when I was in college. I had a desktop that I had Windows 2000 running on that I was just using as a file server. I forget why I was doing it. I was also sharing it with one of my roommates at the time, so we were both using it. And then shortly after that, I started getting into Linux. So I think my first home lab after that was Pentium 3 Dell desktop that I was running some early form of Ubuntu on, I think.
Oh, nice. I think mine was similar. I vaguely remember running Windows XP on mine. And again, that being same as yours, I had file sharing turned on, and it was just basically a file server. And for hardware, it may have been a little bit more advanced than that because it was later, you know. So that's why I think I was running like an AMD Thunderbird 1.3 gigahertz, something like that, with 512 megs of RAM, maybe a gig. It's been a while. But what I do remember, though, from that computer was the case, because it was one of those Antec cases that had the doors that would open. So it was like a Antec file server case that later on, I think it was Chain Tech or something like that, they made a case that was really similar. I almost thought they copied, which I guess they called the Dragon case or something. Anyway, gamers were using it and stuff, putting liquid cooling inside and everything. But I was just using it as a file server. Great case. That's what I remember the most about that. Home lab. But yeah, it was just a file server. It was on all the time though, and I'm sure I had minimal security on it. I think it was running a Avast antivirus or EVG, and possibly remote desktop. That's it. Yeah. So that was my first one. But yeah, it's been uphill from there with each later home lab that was built. So what inspired you to build your home lab?
Nothing really inspired me. It just kind of grew organically. I'm actually looking at earlier iterations of my setup right now. And I don't have pictures of the earliest ones, but I think it started as just a single computer with a single hard drive, and then at one point I was running a Pentium 4 with Dell with an external hard drive that I had gotten from a recycling center. That turned into, I had an old Media Center PC that I realized once we upgraded our TV couldn't play high definition video, so that quickly got repurposed. And then I had this little tiny Foxconn PC. It was very small, the size of just a tiny thin client, but it ran on an Atom processor that was hooked up to a couple of external hard drives, but still nothing really fancy network-wise. Just hooked up to the basic, the same switch that the Wi-Fi was hooked up to. But then eventually I decided, you know what, I want to do something that's actually planned and actually built out, and something that I could spend a decent chunk of change on that would last me for a long time, that would be able to grow with my needs. So I ended up getting a proper managed switch, a couple of dedicated machines, proper network attached storage, and I'm going to go into all the details about that later. But to answer your question, it just kind of grew and grew and grew over time. Each time I would just want to do something more and something better, and so my inspiration was just always, how can I make this better?
Okay.
How about you?
Yeah. For me, I had seen. So a buddy of mine, Greg, that you also knew, he lived with his roommate at the time. I think it was Dan at the time, and Dan had a server that was a Dell, probably like a T4600 or something like that. Anyway, it was just one of those workstation PCs, nothing big, nothing major. And he had this thing under his bed, and it was sideways and all that stuff, and it had some drives in there. And so I asked him what that was, and he's like, "Yeah, that's my home server, that's my lab." And I, he was running file sharing services on that, and I was like, wow, I don't know why I didn't think about that. I mean, I could totally use that to back up all my data. And so then I wanted to do my own. So that was one of my inspirations, was, just seeing this thing underneath his, under his bed, and it was just on, and it's on all the time, probably full of dust and stuff, but it worked. Another one was, and actually that was a bit before that, when my dad had his company, he had a system that I built for him. I built one of those beige cases they were made for file servers. They had lots of bays, lots of 5 1/4 bays, like huge, and it had wheels, and it was beige, like this big beige box that had wheels and two full power supplies. And I believe it was a dual Pentium 2 or dual Pentium 3 700, something like that. I think that's what it was. And it was running Windows 2000. And I had to set that up for him so that they could use programs like, I think it was like Quicken or something like that. And so they had Quicken in multi-user mode, and then they had their file server and all that stuff, and they were using that, and remote desktop. And so that was another inspiration. I saw that, I built that for them, and I'm like, man, I could do this at home. So between that and then Dan's machine, I was like, that's it. That's exactly what I want to do. So that was kind of like how I got inspired. Plus, the whole tech thing. I love having hardware and stuff around.
Nice.
Yeah. So, you want to talk about your current home lab?
Yeah, sure. I've got to stop saying Yeah, let's talk about that, and let's talk about what before we talk about the current ones, let's talk about what we did with our older ones. How about that? So besides sharing files, what else were you doing?
Oh, at the time, I think I was just sharing files, and just backing up stuff. Actually, it was weird. The way that I used to back up stuff back then was I would just throw files in there. I wouldn't have an actual backup scheme. I wouldn't use. It was later. It was later when I started to use, and I think it was like Windows backup. Something that would do these incremental backups using just some simple Windows services. Later on, I started to use something called Mozy. And then I would have the Mozy backup going and everything. And I actually used that in a company that I worked for, and they were using Mozy, so that was pretty easy. Then Mozy was good because it would compress and everything, compress the data. So would Windows, but Mozy just seemed to be a pretty lightweight program, and the compression was good. At the time I was just throwing files in there, and then if I would wipe my computer or whatever, I would just have to reinstall everything. There were no images or anything like that made, but then I would just recover all my files from that server, or I would just access them from there. So that was pretty much my use back then for that.
Gotcha. Mine was file serving as well, typical Samba file serving, but even with my Linux servers, they were still sharing up via Samba because that's the most widely used protocol, the most compatible anyways. But even in the early days, I was hosting my own websites and running my own SSH servers. I remember my portfolio site used to be ran on that Pentium 3 Linux rig that I used to have, and I remember learning about how to track how many people looked at my website, and how to set up Apache, and how to get port forwarding going with SSH early on. And I remember the first time I tried doing all of that stuff, it was a little difficult, but once I finally got it, it was such a good experience. Now this is all stuff I can do in my sleep, but that first time, it was quite the learning experience.
Come on, we all know you were using GeoCities back then.
I never used GeoCities. To tell you the truth.
Oh man.
Never did.
Yeah, I think I talked about this in a previous episode, but I remember running my first website, which was called the Wing Commander Cafe. And I must have made that back in like 97 or something. I was a big Wing Commander nut. I loved all the Wing Commander games and everything. And so I had decided to make its own website with a chat. It had its own chat portion, its own chat area. That was, I think, using some really early version of Java. Or was it ActiveX or something? Whatever it is, it's unsafe now. But back then I was using it, and of course nobody was on this chat thing, so I had to practically beg people to go to my site so we could chat, and then they would chat about anything else but Wing Commander. So yeah, but that was my. I know we're getting off topic, but anyway, GeoCities.
It's supposed to be Wing Commander. Talk about Wing Commander. Come on.
Stop talking about Seinfeld. Yeah, so good for you. That's great that you ran Apache. I was over there using GeoCities, and it had its own tracker and all that. And remember those under construction sites?
Oh, of course.
Definitely got to remember those. Yep. So, all right. Well, that was fun. Do you want to talk about your current home lab?
I would love to.
Unless you want to go through the evolution of your home lab, then we can talk about your second home lab server.
Nah. I barely remember the specs of my previous iterations, but the current one I'm particularly proud of because I put a lot of time, work, and effort into it. Instead of a single machine with a hard drive dangling off of it, this is 2 Intel NUCs. They are, the model number is NUC 5i 5RYB. They both have Intel Core i5 5250U processors running at 1.6 gigahertz, but with a max turbo of 2.7 gigahertz. They each have 16 gigabytes of RAM and a Samsung Evo 850 SSD at 120 gigabytes. So the processors have each 2 cores and 4 threads. They are for storage. They're using a Synology DS1513 Plus, and that has an Intel Atom D2700 processor running at 2.13 gigahertz, and that has 2 gigabytes of RAM, and that NAS is amazing. Yes, there are cheaper solutions. There are QNAPs, there are Netgears. You know what? They suck. Synology does a fantastic job. I decided I am sick of running my own file server. So for that portion of it, I'll just buy an appliance for that. So this thing has 5 bays, 14 terabytes of storage, and it's been going solid for 5 years. It's got 4 terabyte Seagate Iron Wolf 5900 RPM hard drives. So networking, those are hooked up to a TP-Link Jetstream TL SG3216 managed 16-port switch. They're all gigabit ports, and it being a managed switch makes a huge difference in what I'm able to do. So typically, a regular just off-the-shelf switch is unmanaged. There's no interface. It's just you plug things in. They're all on a flat network. With a managed switch, you're able to do, they have an actual interface you can configure things with. You can do things like setting up VLANs. You can set up 2 ports to be bonded together to provide active-active or active-passive connectivity. You can do, what else can you do with it? I'm mainly doing VLANing and the link aggregation. But there's plenty of other stuff you can do. And what I do with mine is I use VLANing to separate storage traffic from actual server traffic, and from retro computing traffic as well, in fact. And that is hooked up to a pfSense router. So most routers are, wireless access points and routers and a switch all into one. Well, this thing is just a router. It's a Netgate SG2440. It runs pfSense, which is an open source router operating system based on FreeBSD that is sublime. And the router itself has an Intel Atom processor. It's a C2358 at 1.74 gigahertz. This is a dual-core processor, and it has 4 gigabytes of RAM. It actually has more RAM than my storage array. And this is what makes it special. It has 4 NICs. So along with having plenty of horsepower, it has 4 separate network interfaces. So instead of having one network, I can actually have 4 networks. And what I do with that is one network supplies connectivity to my main computers, laptops, phones, whatever. But then I also have my servers on their own network called the DMZ, and that is VLANed off. So most of my machines on the main network can access the servers, but the servers can't access the main network. That way it has that level of separation and security. And then I have a whole another separated network for when we were playing around with DOS machines. I didn't want Windows 98 anywhere near my packets. So I just gave it its own separate, just go be virus laden over there. And that covers and there's one more thing. And for wireless, I have a UniFi AP-AC Lite access point that provides me with speedy wireless AC connectivity. And that is all my hardware.
That is really, really detailed. I don't know if I have that much detail in mine, but I'll try.
And a UPS, of course.
UPS, of course.
Yes.
Of course, and an electrical outlet.
Yes. And a shelf.
Yeah, we need that. And a
and
shelf.
And zip ties
Walls.
for managing the wires.
That's right.
Yes.
And a floor. So what do you use this for? It's quite intricate hardware here.
Well, I was going to ask you the same thing, but I guess I'll answer first, and then you answer those same questions. I use this for a lot. So at a high level, I use it for listening to music. I run my own Aersonic server, so instead of Spotify, like all the cool kids do, I still have my own local music collection. And Aersonic allows me to listen to my music over the internet through a desktop or through a mobile application. I'm using it for Nextcloud, which is a kind of a replacement for Dropbox, but also very extendable. I mainly use it for managing my calendars and contacts. So my phone synchronizes its calendars and contacts with that. I've also used that for sharing files with others, using it as a secure file drop. I've even used it as a video conferencing service. Nextcloud is fantastic. I use it as... It really is. I use it as for MariaDB to provide the backend for the backend database for Nextcloud. I use it to manage my UniFi's interface because that's its own server process. I use it for SyncThing, which I use as a Dropbox replacement. That is a peer-to-peer file synchronization program, similar to BitTorrent Sync, but open source and much better vetted than BitTorrent Sync is. Is anyone even using BitTorrent Sync anymore, I wonder? But I'm also using it for a downloader setup via Usenet. So for grabbing, TV shows, movies, it's using Sonar, Radar, NZBGet, and because I am often sending snippets of code, and I'm not always talking on Slack, I run my own paste server called PrivateBin, which is a paste server that not even the administrator, that being me, would have the ability to view the contents of the paste on if somebody else were to use it. It's designed to be secure and end-to-end encrypted like that. So,
yeah.
That's
quite a bit.
Pretty much what I do. Oh, and underneath all of that, though, it's running Proxmox for the hypervisor. So that's where I spin up all my virtual machines, which I've trimmed down to, I think, only about 3 or 4 now. Plex. I run Plex for watching my videos. And all of my services are running in Docker containers. Well, no, it's actually not Docker. They're now Containerd containers running on K3s Kubernetes, which is a very lightweight version of Kubernetes. I was running a whole Rancher stack and full Kubernetes, but now that's been trimmed down to this new service from Rancher called K3s, which is a single 40 megabyte binary. And that has reduced my RAM consumption from about 30 gigabytes of RAM to 12 for running the same services.
Wow.
And that's it.
Yeah, that's a huge reduction.
That is everything.
Time to throw away those other sticks of RAM.
Right.
I was going to say that, the ultimate challenge here, Chris, would be to run your entire server on a G4 Cube.
Oh, ooh.
That is the ultimate challenge. They did have some FireWire drive. I think it had a FireWire, two FireWire ports. I don't know. I gotta check. But you could buy some of those LaCie, I think I'm saying it right, hard drives, and then put them in a little daisy chain configuration or something. I don't know.
It would probably take about 10 G4 cubes to have the same horsepower as what those two NUCs have.
Yeah, but it looks so cool. Anyway, well, with my home lab, I decided to go the Beast route, and I don't even run as many services as you do, but I had to have the Beast, so I ended up buying a Dell T420. It's a server made. It's a tower server that is made with for two processors, and the max processors you can use are Xeon V3s. So I believe it's using Ivy Bridge. I don't know. I have to check. But anyway, the servers that I or V2s. Now I'm getting all confused. I had all this stuff planned in my head, and now I'm confused about which ones that are V3s or V2s. Maybe V2s. Anyway, it's built on the Ivy Bridge architecture, and I have two. So it's a motherboard that has two sockets, and it's got 10 core processors on each socket, and they're hyper-threaded. So each socket, so I have 20 real cores and 40 virtual cores. I'm running an Adaptec, what is that called? It's like a SAS controller, an Adaptec SAS controller, which is actually powering my entire RAID setup. I have a mixed RAID setup going on right now. What is it, Chris? Like a RAID 5?
Yeah, it's a RAID 5.
Yeah. So it's a RAID 5 with, I have 4 8 terabyte Seagate Enterprise hard drives. And, but it's not the exact 32 terabytes because one of the hard drives gets used for redundancy. And so, I have less space than that, but still it's a lot of space. That's pretty much the hardware there. I think it has 2 power supplies as well. One of them is a 700 watt and the other one's a 450 watt. That's the one that came with it. And so they're redundant power supplies. If one goes down, the other one picks right up, and you won't have downtime. The hard drive configuration is really neat because it uses these caddies, and you can just pull them out. And I believe they're hot swappable, so you can just take them out. Although I haven't tried that, and I'm a little bit scared to right now. but yeah. That's about all the hardware. I mean, for the server itself, it's just got a backplane, and in the backplane you can just connect all these different hard drives, and of course they use the SAS connector, but the SAS is fully compatible with the SATA connectors, so you could just buy SATA hard drives and do it that way. They don't have all the SAS features, but SATA hard drives are cheaper, and with the amount of disk space that you get for SATA hard drives. I think I spent something like $100 or $120 for these 8 terabyte drives. I mean, not all of them, but each, so it's still a really great price for 8 terabytes. I remember spending that price on a 20 gigabyte hard drive, Western Digital back in the day. And the services that I'm running on it are, Plex Media server, just like you. And I also have an xCloud server as well, although I don't really seem to use it as much as you. I still have it on there, save my documents and stuff. It's really handy on my phone. I like having the Nextcloud app on my phone, and I need to save the document. I just put it on my Nextcloud, and I'm done with that. So that's pretty neat. And I remember that we did test the video function on a web browser. I would love to test it on the phone. I haven't tried that yet, and I would like to do that.
It actually works decently well on the phone.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Nice. So I'd like to, let's do that sometime. I was running a Rocket Chat server, but again, nobody was using it. There seems to be this constant thing in my life where I build a chat room and nobody uses it. So I just kind of, shut it down because it's just taking up resources, even though I have a ton of it. But for no reason. Let's see what else. File sharing, of course, the old stuff. I have an FTP Although with Nextcloud, it's kind of not necessary. Running SoundCloud. Yeah, those are the main things I'm running. But I also have this really neat thing that I recently learned about, and that was, you know how Google Stadia, you can play games through Google's platform, which basically means the games are installed on Google Cloud, Google platform. They're running these, I believe they're Blade servers that house these the video cards, the Nvidias or whatever they are, Radeons. But they have them all together in these Blade servers, and then they have multiple users connecting to it. So I thought, what a great idea. I want to do that in my home lab. I want to be able to build my own kind of quote unquote Google Stadia, but you know, there's other technologies, of course. It wouldn't be running Google Cloud or anything like that. So I ended up learning a lot about how to do remote gaming using programs like Parsec and using another program like Rainway to be able to play games on my server remotely. So if I want to play on an iPad, on my phone, I could do that. So I ended up installing a GPU to that, and I passed through the GPU on Proxmox through one of my VMs. And so the VM saw the full GPU, and then I was able to, using one of these low latency services like Parsec or Rainway, I was able to, to play games at a decent resolution with all the effects turned on and everything. It's very dependent on your connection, though. So if anybody out there wants to try this, you can. Just make sure that your internet connection is definitely good. It's strong, because otherwise you're going to have high latency and your ping time is going to be really bad, and so your response time is going to be bad. You could have a blurry picture and everything, but yeah, I mean, Parsec and Rainway, they're using, I think, codecs like H.264, H.265. I mean, they're really compressed, but they're great for this kind of stuff. And they automatically detect if you have an Xbox controller and you connect it to your computer, either be it Bluetooth or USB wire, it automatically finds it and uses that. So you could play this thing anywhere with a controller. And the ultimate test was, I wanted to connect to Chris's Doom server on my iPhone and then show it to you, Chris. Like I wanted to just, there was like a show off kind of thing, like, hey, look what I'm doing. And so then I just I did it. I was able to connect using Rainway via my phone. There's a Rainway app, and I connected to my server, and I was playing and then I was connected to your server, and I was playing Doom on my phone using the Xbox controller through Bluetooth.
That was really
neat.
And
then to top it all, yeah, man, I wanted to show off, and then to top it off, I used casting to my TV. So then I was playing outside too. I have an outside TV, and so I wanted to play Doom outside, with my Xbox controller. So yeah, that was something that I wanted to try out, and it worked well. I mean, I had at one point I had 2 GPUs on that server, and then my brother connected to it, and then I was connected to it, and we were both playing Unreal Tournament. So we were playing against each other and everything. There was some latency, so it wasn't perfect, but it worked, and that's what was really cool about it. So yeah, that was my thing on the new home lab. I wanted to build a big, like a beast to be able to try this kind of stuff out. Yeah, now that I know how to do it and everything, I could do it again, but I haven't really had time to play, especially now with my daughter and everything. So I just kind of took the GPU out. No need for having, you consuming the extra power, and not to mention heat that it generates for just sitting there. And I just haven't used it in a while. So, but it's, I already left the VM and everything on. It's all there. I just need to connect the GPU, and it's back online.
That was a really neat setup when you had it going. You had me try it, and it did work well. You had me playing Destroy All Humans, the new one.
Yes.
And
yep.
Yeah, it was a little bit, laggy and compressed, but the controls were solid. It was playable, and I actually was looking forward to trying it again. Then when we tried Rainway, that didn't work as well. You had me trying Parsec. Rainway went through the web browser instead of its own dedicated application, and
right.
Yeah, that didn't work well at all. But I think the biggest constraint is your upload bandwidth. It's
Yep.
if you have something like Verizon Fios where you had 100 or 400 up and down, it would be a lot better.
Right. Yeah, it's definitely dependent on that. And if somebody else is on your network, my wife is watching Netflix and all that stuff, it's definitely using up your bandwidth. And so that's one of those things that that it could be better. And actually, it does get it. So Rainway actually receives like weekly updates. I've noticed Rainway, they continuously make updates to their application. So I'm hoping that now, or sometime soon, they'll be at a good point, like Parsec, which also Parsec updates their applications as well. One neat thing about Parsec is that if you install it, and I haven't installed, I could potentially log into your machine. It always asks for everything. It's not like I can just, intrude into your machine. It asks if this person can join and everything. And you could potentially play a two-player game on the same machine. So let's say you had I don't know, Street Fighter going, right? And you had a two-player match and you assign one the controller and the other one the mouse. I could potentially log in to your machine running Parsec, and then I could be the second player. So there is that ability as well.
Very cool.
Yeah, it's gone a long way, and I think they'll just continue making it more and more refined and better and everything. So just another one of those neat things that you can do with your own home lab. I've been watching a lot of YouTube and on people building home labs, and they definitely have their very intricate setups. I mean, way bigger than what we both have. One guy dedicated his entire basement to it. So he has, servers, blade servers, rack mounts and everything. And I don't know what his energy bill is, but I don't think he cares. So maybe he's running like miners or something, maybe he's, Bitcoin mining or something. I don't know. But definitely, it looks like that's what his passion is. And he's just kind of building it more and more. But it's really neat to see people building these setups, and then you get ideas, and it's like, oh, I want to try that. That might work well in my own setup. So, that's just one of those things.
I am a little envious of that server you have. You have so much in the way
Power.
In the way of hardware resources that I could do so much with.
Yeah, man.
And meanwhile, I'm struggling just to fit everything into 32 gigs of RAM.
Well, see, the thing about it is though, is that it's admirable what you're doing, because you're probably consuming a fraction of the power that I'm using, and
that's my goal.
And such such low resources, you're accomplishing so much, which is actually that's really, really neat.
I think mine's under 100 watts, probably around.
That's
70.
fantastic. Yeah, that's great. I mean, that's definitely not what I'm doing. So, that's really neat. I mean, I think that your next step, if you ever wanted to evolve this home lab, would be, I don't know, man, a stack of Raspberry Pis all put together in in those pizza boxes or whatever. The little tiny boxes they put together.
That is the next step.
Stack them up.
That actually is the next step, because now that I've learned how to use K3s, one of its features is it's optimized for ARM, and I want to set up a four node Raspberry Pi cluster. I've already priced it out. I think it would be about, $400 to get the case and 4 Raspberry Pi, 4 8GB models, and the memory sticks and all that, or the SD cards rather. But that would those things consume 6 watts apiece.
There you go.
So
yeah, your home lab will be nice and green. Not like mine, man. I'm over here burning coal.
I would have the same amount of RAM, definitely slower storage, but I'm doing all of my my virtual machine's hard disk isn't on the internal storage. They're all on the on an NFS share on the Synology. So
what would be really ironic is if after that build you were like, well, now I'm not consuming any power because I have everything on the cloud. Oh man, no, that's great though. That's awesome. I'm over here burning coal, to keep mine up. So I'm not saving the planet by having mine.
So,
But yeah.
what's gonna be what's gonna be next for you, home lab wise? What do you want to deploy next? What kind of hardware do you want to get into next?
I don't know about increasing the hardware right now. I'm having a problem with one of my disks. It's not the RAID is not recognizing the disk, and it's weird because I even updated the firmware on that hard drive. So it can match the same firmware as the other hard drives, but still it doesn't want to add. I can't expand the RAID. So I'm a little bit concerned about that. I wanted to expand the RAID more. So that's one of those things. But really, processor wise and everything, I mean, I'm not consuming nearly as much as it can hold. I think. I forgot to mention the amount of RAM it has. I'm using 96 gigs of RAM, but the server is able to hold up to 384. 300 something gigs of RAM is what it could have potentially. Yeah, but I'm not using that much. So I'm actually 96 gigs is plenty because I'm not using. I might be at around 40 or 50 gigs being used right now. And then when I turn on that VM with the GPU, I typically add 16 gigs of RAM to that and another 16 to the other GPU, to the other VM. So, it does get used, but that's just one of those things that, does it, do I need that much power? I don't know. I mean, you seem to be doing a lot with a lot less resources, but for me, I think I'm going to keep what I have right now, maybe try to figure out why my extra disk is not being read. And then from there, in regards to services, I think I might stand up that Rocket Chat again. Maybe I'll start using it instead of Jitsi, or maybe just use Nextcloud instead. And I think that what I want to do is maybe make some multiplayer gaming again. Either through the GPU gaming to kind of keep that going, especially if you wanted to try it out. Or just stand up some, Quake 3 server or something like that and just keep it on, just like you have your Doom server. So I might be doing that, and might be doing that pretty soon.
I have a couple of ideas for you.
Yeah,
maybe
backup server. Ooh, I've never built a proper backup server before.
Yeah, you definitely need backups. But the idea that I was going to say was instead of Rocket Chat, you could try a Matrix server. That's a type of I haven't gotten into it myself, but the big thing about it is it's fully federated. So I can set up a Matrix server, you can set up a Matrix server, we can federate them and talk to each other from our own. And that's one that's getting a lot of traction lately. Another thing, since you have...
What is it for? What's a Matrix server do? Is that for like file sharing or what?
No, it's for messaging.
Oh, for messaging. Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
Matrix.org. It's the website says an open network for secure, decentralized communication. So it's fully open source, of course, and it's something that would be really fun to get into, especially together.
I do really like the idea of federating our servers, especially since they're always on, so if we could have like its own separate VPN that's constantly on. And then we could just have kind of our own federated network of federation. Anyway, yeah, federated. So
and,
that'd be really cool.
Since you have the hardware, there's one you can do that I can't, because I tried this and it just toppled my servers. They're very resource intensive, and that is the full Jitsi stack. There's a lot of moving parts to it, but they do have it deployable in a Docker Compose fashion. So what you could do is you can spin up one VM, assign it a buttload of RAM, give it, 4, 6, whatever cores, run, and then run through the instructions to do Docker Compose up, let it get a certificate, and then you'll have actual Jitsi that we are talking about right now, but self-hosted.
Nice. Yes, let's do it. I'm all about that. Yeah, I got to make this hardware. I got to put it to use, right? So yeah, let's do it. I want to try it. I don't even have Docker running though, so I think I'm gonna have to start from the beginning.
it'll be very easy to set up a machine that runs Docker. In fact, I've already set up a minimal Debian instance where on first boot it'll just run a script, install Docker, turn off all the auto boot stuff, and I can get you started with that pretty quick. Great.
Yeah, we'll have to have one of those cool hangout working sessions.
That would be fun. Oh, and backups. What I do for backups is on the Synology, it's able to back up stuff to any number of offsite services. So in my case, I'm using S3, and I have a daily S3 job. It is using Synology's Hyper Backup. It keeps 7 days worth of incremental backups, and it saved my bacon recently because when I was playing with K3S, there was a couple of times when I had to shut the VMs off abruptly, even though I had snapshots, since they were using storage via an NFS share. SyncThings database got corrupted, which for me, that's huge because I'm syncing 3 computers, 1 server, and 2 laptops, and I would had to have set it all up from scratch again. And yes, I still have all the files, but the actual synchronization state would have been a royal pain to redo. So all I had to do was go into Hyper Backup, select the SyncThing folder, tell it back up to yesterday, and it was done.
That's great.
It preserved the directory structure, the file permissions, everything.
Very neat. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, that's something I'm gonna have to think about as well.
Yeah,
but
it needs to be automatic to where you don't even think about it.
Right. Yep, that's exactly it. That's definitely one of my requirements. Well, the last thing that I wanted to mention about Home Labs is that it has a pretty vibrant community. As I mentioned, there's YouTubers out there that have their own home labs that talk about it. There are Facebook communities out there that talk about it. They definitely have a presence in social media. It's a community that's thriving, actually, and you'd be surprised how many people are running their home labs and how friendly they are. To new users and everything, and to get advice and all that. So, it's just one of those things that I feel like I became a member of a growing community, and that was really neat. So
definitely.
That's I think that's it. It's about all I have to say about Home Labs. Unless you have anything else, Chris.
No, that's about it. I'm glad we got to re-record this one. I think it came out better.
Did you hit save?
It's saving right now. Backing up to, I'm actually at my friend's house right now. I'm not at home, but this is recording into my SyncThing folder, which is automatically sending to my home lab, which is automatically getting backed up to S3.
Awesome. Just in case.
Yep.
All right. Well, then, sounds like that's a wrap. Well, Chris, you want to tell them where to go for the the deets?
Oh, that's right. I got to do that thing. So we can be found on Facebook, facebook.com/ForkBombPodcast. Also, we have a Twitter handle that we never check. At ForkBombPodcast. We can be emailed, forkbombpodcast@gmail.com. We have a website, forkbomb.podbean, BEAN as in Nancy.com. You can leave comments directly on the website. You can leave comments on our Facebook page. You can tell us what we're doing great, what we're not doing so great. Give us suggestions.
Hit like, dislike.
Like and subscribe, guys. So mash that like button.
Mash that like button.
And yeah, I think
ring that bell.
Ring that bell. I think think those are that's about it.
Okay. Well, thank you very much, Chris.
Thank you, Eero. Congrats again on being a dad.
Yay. All right. Thanks a lot, and have a good night. Good night, everybody.
Good night.